Loving the Lord. We're in this series of loving the Lord, and today we're going to be looking at loving the Lord by seeking godly wisdom. How wise are you? I mean, I don't really want you to answer that out loud, but how wise are you? You know, I know some people I think are very prudent people. I go to them from time to time and I ask for their wisdom. I ask for their insight because I see them as being prudent individuals. I see them as being mature in their faith. Am I a godly person seeking godly wisdom? Yes, I hope you are too. But I don't think that we ever get to the point where we don't need to continue seeking godly wisdom. This first 2 or 3 verses you're going to know very well. You should be able to recite it by heart. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Now that's the King James. I grew up with that. I know that one best. In all of your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshing to your bones. May God add his blessings to the reading, the proclamation, the understanding of his holy and blessed word. The daily decisions that we make, do they have consequences? I see several heads shaking in the affirmative, and you're right. Every day, our decisions have consequences, whether it be on the job, whether it be at work, whether it be at home, whether it be in the community, whether it be in your private life. We have decisions to make. Those decisions, good or bad, will have consequences. Will I get out there and go to work today? Will I get out there and go to school like I need to? Or will I call in sick and play hooky today? Will I lie just to save my own skin? See, I believe that when someone insults us, someone puts us down, someone hurts us, we need to know how we're going to react to that. How we react to that can have its own set of consequences. When I'm tempted to do something that sounds fun, but might have those negative consequences, what am I going to do? What are you going to do? How should I handle money? Where do I spend it? How do I spend it? Every choice we make has consequences. Think about it. Every choice we make have consequences. Driving on the road yesterday, 22 is not a good road to try to pass somebody on, is it? Well, somebody not making good choices tried to pass me and another little old lady in front of me. Almost had a disastrous outcome. Made me think about this, knowing what my sermon was going to be like. Sometimes the decision that we make, it's all about ourselves, what we want to do. And that little young whippersnapper just had to get past me and that other person. It could have had some very severe consequences. Now, some of those consequences that we're talking about, we may see the results right away. We may see those results immediately. Some results of those decisions may not come about for years, even decades, or even a lifetime. But we have to agree and acknowledge that our decision, make that plural, decisions, have its own set of consequences. Now, I could leave here today, excuse me, and I could get me a Big Mac. I could get me a supersized order of French fries and a medium Dr. Pepper right at our local McDonald's. I could do that for lunch. And in all probability, that's not going to have any adverse consequences because of that decision. But suppose I did that every day and had all that greasy food every day, day in and day out, and not exercise, and another decision that we can make, then we can see consequences. It can bring about obesity. It can bring about high blood pressure. It can bring about high cholesterol. It can bring about heart issues. Remember what we talked about 2 Sundays ago, and I even made reference to it last Sunday? You reap what you sow. Now, we all are familiar with that passage from Galatians, the 6th chapter, which means if we are planting bad choices, then we will eventually cultivate bad consequences. If I can paraphrase that a little, that's exactly what that's meaning. And the choices we make do make a difference. Don't leave here today until you can know in your heart the choices we make does make a difference. The choices we make, either today, tomorrow, or somewhere down the road, will have its own set of consequences. Secondly, wisdom. What is wisdom? I pray for wisdom. You pray for wisdom. There's probably not a day goes by, not too many hours throughout a day. I was in a situation yesterday. Had to deal with something I was a little uncomfortable with. I just prayed, Lord, give me the wisdom. Give me the insight to do what I need to do and say what I need to do. Wisdom is the ability to constantly make good choices. However you define wisdom, it is the ability to constantly make good choices. See, there's a word for being able to make the right decisions at the right time. What is that word? Wisdom. It's the ability to make the right choices at the right time. I can make the right choice, but it'd be the wrong time. You know, timing is a big part of this too. But the word that we're looking at right here is wisdom. This is a definition that Webster's dictionary gives. I thought this was a pretty profound definition. Carried it out further than I thought it would. And I'd love to be able to tell you this is my definition, but it's old man Webster's, okay? His definition for wisdom is having the knowledge of what is true or right coupled with good judgment. And I like that. Think about that. Having the knowledge, wisdom is having the knowledge of what is true and what is right, coupled with good judgment. Sometimes I exercise poor judgment. You do too. So if that's the case, then do I really have the wisdom that I should have? Am I seeking the wisdom that we're told to seek after here? A wise person is one who knows what is true, what is right, and then is able to make the right decision. Pretty basic, but it's a whole lot harder to do than most of us realize. Now, wisdom should not be confused with knowledge or common sense. Knowledge you can pick up out of a book. Knowledge you can pick up in a class. And you might even pick up some knowledge watching Dr. Phil or one of those shows on TV, okay? But a person who is wise, that has nothing to do with how smart that person really is, or what kind of grades they might make in school, or what kind of job they may have. Some of the smartest people in the world, some of the smartest people I've ever known, have made some of the dumbest decisions in human life. Let me give you an illustration here. It comes from I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. I've never heard anybody pronounce it. I've just read it. Reuters, R-E-U-T-E-R-S, Reuters News. Reuters? Okay, thank you. And this illustration here really demonstrates that smart people don't always make the best decision. True story, okay? You can check it out. A Massachusetts doctor and a Harvard graduate has been suspended of his medical license for leaving a patient on the operating table midway through spinal surgery. Why? Because he needed to go and make a deposit at his bank. So, when word got to the state board, Dr. David Arndt, an orthopedic surgeon, Dudley, don't go to him, okay? Posed an immediate threat to public health, safety, and welfare after he left a patient last month with an open incision in his back. Now, according to Reuters, I got to get that down, okay? Reuters News, Dr. Arndt left behind a surgeon, another surgeon, who was not qualified to complete the surgery. After his 35-minute trip to the bank, this doctor returned to the operating room and finished the surgery within a few hours. True story. Actually happened in Massachusetts. As you might guess, the doctor's license to practice medicine in Massachusetts has been suspended. He will have a chance to appeal the decision. Again, smart people can make some very dumb decisions. I'm on that list. I'm not sure how smart I am, but I've made some dumb decisions. We all have. I don't care how good we are, how good we think we are. We've all made decisions based upon poor choices. We probably know a lot of smart people that have made bad decisions, and that could be us. Thirdly, God is the source of all wisdom. I've underlined, circled, and highlighted all wisdom. How does a person gain wisdom? So that they can constantly make the right choices. Now, we'll walk out of here. You know, if your week is like mine, and I think it is, where there's so much action-packed stuff in our week, so many decisions to make, so many things to do, so many choices to make. Now, those 10,000 choices that I'll make this week, how many of them will be right? How many of them will be the... How will I know what is right? Will I come back next week and say, well, that was a bad choice. I shouldn't have made that. Bad choices, good choices. How do we find that wisdom? How does a person gain wisdom so that they can constantly make the right choices? I have to ask myself. I've been down the road a long time. Longer than some of you, but not as long as some of you either, okay? But we've all been down that path of making decisions. Now, the book of Proverbs, which is commonly referred to as the book of wisdom, says this: for the Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. The Bible tells us that God is the source of wisdom. God is the one who helps us make those right decisions, make the good decisions, make the best decisions every day. And you know, when I think about that, that really makes sense. It's not too hard to figure out, but it really does make sense because God knows everything. And we only know what happened in the past, and a lot of that we forgot. God knows everything. He knows the future. God knows the result of a decision that we make long before we make that decision. God knows everything. Now, unfortunately, what we want to do is we try to rely on our own decision. We try to rely upon our own thinking up here in our minds. We really need to ask ourselves, does this feel right for me? In my own conviction, will I know that this is right? Will it make me happy? Will it bring about peace? Will it make me contented? Will this decision make sense a week, a month, a year, or years down the road? Oh, yeah, it may work for a while. We can look at our lives, we can look at all the decisions that we've made, the good ones, the bad ones, and we say, hey, that's going to work for a while. Or we'll say that'll work. We may not realize that for a while is another part of that equation. It may work. It may look good, only for a while. But when we do those things in our own wisdom and in our own understanding, mark it down. I know what I'm talking about. Mark it down. When we continue to do that, we will steer ourselves down the wrong path. And that always leads to wrong decisions. And it could prove to be a disastrous choice because we made our own decision based upon our own knowledge, our own limited wisdom, instead of seeking the wisdom of God. Listen, my friends. Using our own judgment and our own judgment alone will cause us at some point in time to fail morally. It can cause us to destroy relationships, friendships, all because we did it our way. All because we were not seeking that godly wisdom. Now, we've been talking for the last 8 weeks here about loving the Lord. Loving the Lord. Loving the Lord. How can we? We've gone through 8 of these already. There's 1,000 of them out there. Things that we can do if we really want to love the Lord. And I told you at the very first, if we're going to really love the Lord, then we got to draw close to Him. If you love your cat or you love your dog, then chances are you spend time petting it and feeding it and taking care of it. If you love the Lord, you're going to spend time with Him. And I'm convinced the more time we spend with God, the more time we're going to have to grow closer to Him. And the more I spend time with God, guess what? The wiser I get. But when I use my own wisdom, I'm not nearly as smart as I'd like to think I am. Proverbs 14:12 says, there is a path that seems right. But, there's another one of those buts, but it ends in death. There's a path that seems right, but it ends in death. That really means that the decisions that we make or the path that we choose to take may seem right to us, when in reality, it leads us down a road of destruction. All because poor choices make bad consequences. I read again. Please put this up on the screen. Proverbs 3, starting with verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. See, we've known this ever since we were knee-high to a grasshopper, as my dad used to always say, whatever that meant. We know this passage. I don't care how well you know it. If we haven't come to the point of really hiding that passage in our heart and knowing what that means, then we're going to make some bad choices, and we're going to have some bad consequences. Trust in the Lord. That means, Lord, I don't know what's going on. I can't figure out this, but I'm trusting in you. I'm trusting in you with not part of my heart or some of my heart, but with all of my heart. Help me, Lord, not to lean upon my own understanding. My own understanding is limited. I can't do what I need to do. I can't make the choices I need to make without you in the center of that. In all of my ways, Lord, help me to acknowledge you. And when I acknowledge you, then trusting him, then guess what? I'll go down the right path. And it's a straight path. It's not one of those crooked, rough, and rocky paths. Help me, Lord, not to be wise in my own eyes. Help me, Lord, to fear you. And when I'm wise in my own eyes, and I do fear you, natural reaction is going to be is to turn from evil. I don't want to be a part of that. And then we have the promise and the assurance going to bring about healing. Healing to our bodies. Healing to our minds. Others. So much here in these 3 or 4 verses. It says a lot about why we are where we are. How often do we really seek God's wisdom? How often do we really seek God's will and God's way in our lives? How often do we lean on our own understanding rather than God's understanding? Do you know what's going to happen tomorrow? Do you? I see 2 or 3 of you shaking your head. No, I don't either. I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. But God does. God, that all-knowing, all-powerful, all-sovereign God, already knows. Do you know how your choices are going to impact your future? We probably don't even think about that. But God knows. And when we trust in him and lean not on our own understanding, we don't live a life full of regret saying, I wish I'd have done this. I wish I'd have not done that. We spend a lifetime, wasting a lifetime, going down the wrong path, making the wrong choices. Real quickly here, we must seek God's wisdom. How do we gain God's wisdom? How do we find God's wisdom? How do we know what the right choice is to make at any given time? If we believe that wisdom comes from God, we've got to seek God. Let me say yes or no. Do we believe that wisdom comes from God? I don't see anybody shaking their head no. Maybe not everybody shaking their head yes, but nobody's shaking their head no. See, I believe that we believe that wisdom really comes from God. True wisdom really comes from God. Now, if we want to grab a hold of that, we've got to seek him. And we've got to seek him every day. It just doesn't happen on a Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, and you think you're going to get enough to carry you to next Sunday at 9 o'clock. You are badly mistaken. You'll make hundreds of poor choices and wrong decisions between now and next week if that's the route you go. How do we seek God's wisdom? We cry out to him. We cry out to him. I cry out to God. God, I'm seeking your help. I'm seeking your wisdom. Far too many of us think that wisdom is an automatic thing. James tells us if we lack wisdom, ask him who gives generously to all without approach, and it will be given. Our problem is we think we can ask it, and the moment we ask it, the Lord just showers that wisdom down upon us. That wisdom takes time, because getting to know God intimately takes time. It takes a relationship. We don't suddenly become wise just because we become a Christian. Or it's a gift from God, which is given to those who pursue it. It is a gift from God given to those who humbly ask for it. Search for wisdom. 2 Timothy 3:16, all Scripture is breathed by God and profitable for teaching. Now, we are given God's inspired word to help guide us in making the right decisions. Unfortunately, Far too many people will have their Bibles, they'll have their study material, they'll have their daily devotional, collecting dust. And then we expect to make the right decisions. But we're not seeking God. Not like we're supposed to. It is my prayer that me, your leader, your shepherd, will make those right decisions. But it's not going to happen just because I want it to happen. It will happen only because I seek him. I cry out to him. I search his word. It'll only happen to you when you do the same. Let's pray. My blessing for each of you is this. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen. Today we're looking at loving the Lord by strengthening our prayer life. Can I see a show of hands for everybody that prays? Now keep them up. Let's see the hands of all of those